Just tell me where to be and what time. I'll be 10 minutes late. So, yeah. All right, bell ringer for today. Describe the Potsdam Conference. Who was involved? What was discussed at this conference? How does meeting dictate the start of the Cold War? There we go. Well, I got that puppy. Oh, man.
How's that going?
It was all right. First couple days, he just laid around, really. Didn't do too much. He was just soaking it all in. So he had to leave him in the crate. Went to work, so he's bawling his eyes out. I had to tell him to suck it up.
I'm gonna bring that thing like
Yeah. We're like 98% of it. Reading like 2 pages.
Actually can do that too. Actually can do that too. Yeah, serious.
Right, left eye, and then. Is that what you did? Computed in. Hey, where'd you get on page 96? Right on. Griffin, you like sushi? I like California. I want sushi. That's bad.
I don't think I have a picture yet. Show it to me.
It's awesome.
That's on.
I know. I think I might be a sushi chef.
Got one of those rice rolls.
Yeah. How cool is that? I put crab in it, avocado, a little bit of shrimp, cream cheese, spicy mayo on it, orange sauce, soy sauce. Threw it all together. What's that?
Nice. Got some food cooking segments.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to do some tempura too, like fry it up sometime.
Deep fried sushi.
Yeah, it'd be great. I caught salmon last year. It's in my freezer, so maybe I'll smoke the salmon. Throw that in there. Oh yeah, it's gonna be a sushi house soon. Dojo, sushi dojo. That's what I should call it. Cobra Kai. All right, Potsdam Conference. When did this happen? Jeffrey?
July 17th, 1945.
All right, so July 1945. Okay, actually kind of went until August of 1945. And where was this held? Jeffrey?
Potsdam.
All right, good. So again, trying to appease Stalin here. Make sure we can meet with him so it's not too far of a travel for him. And yeah, who was all part of it? Who was involved? So the big three, of course, Soviet Union, United States, and Great Britain. But who were the three main players here, Griffin? Yeah, good job. Stalin, Churchill, Truman this time. Yep, Truman. We know FDR, he died in April 1945, just before the war ended in Europe. So he actually didn't see the war end in Europe. So Truman, he became president right after his death. And we know Germany surrendered. When did they surrender? When was VE Day, Victory in Europe Day? When was that? Troy?
May 7th.
Yeah, May 7th, May 8th. Yep, good job. So May 7th, 1945. So the war in Europe was already done. It was over with, okay? You know, Hitler, he committed suicide. We know FDR, he passed away. And we still had a war to fight in the Pacific. And we talked about those two major battles in the Pacific. What were they? raising the flag battle, right? And there was another island that we had to capture to get closer and closer to mainland Japan. The island hopping strategy, right, Jeffrey?
Iwo Jima and
Good job, Iwo Jima and Okinawa. Good. And with those two battles, we knew that the Japanese would never give up, that they would never surrender, that they go to the better end with the kamikaze pilots, flying into many of the naval ships and outposts, and even the invasion onto the island, the two islands of Okinawa and Iwo Jima. And it was really just a part of their culture that they'll never give up, that they'll fight to the very end. And we knew if we tried to initiate an invasion onto the mainland of Japan, it would get a little hairy. Right? It would lead to a lot of deaths, a lot of casualties, maybe even more than the atomic bombs themselves. We don't know. We didn't invade them, obviously, but just because of their culture, they even estimated into 3 to 4 million deaths. Okay, so they're estimating about 500,000 to 1 million American deaths, and the citizens, civilians would probably join in for a total war on the Japanese island. So again, when it came to making the decision to drop the atomic bombs, which we'll talk about today, we were thinking about the casualties. We were thinking about the deaths. And dropping a nuclear bomb was, in many cases, the less costly of the two, believe it or not. All right, so what did these powers talk about? What did the Allied powers come together and talk about at the Potsdam Conference? We talked about the Casablanca. We talked about the Tehran Conference and then the Yalta Conference. But now the Potsdam, this is going to be the last meeting between the big three. Griffin? Yeah, good job. So this was still piggybacking off the Yalta Conference. How they're going to divide up Germany, how they're going to divide up Europe. Stalin wanted to make sure he could protect his people from here on out, right? They got invaded by Napoleon in 1800s. They got invaded by Germany in World War I. They got invaded by Germany again in World War II. So Stalin wanted to make sure that he could protect his people and claim a boundary, a buffer zone in Europe to protect the Soviets. With 27 million soldiers, civilians lost, Soviets lost in World War II, that was his main priority, even though he was pushing these gulags and killing many of his own people. Stalin, can't reason with him, right? But at the same time, what else was a threat to democracy and capitalism? Wherever the Soviets stood, wherever they put troops in Europe or in Asia, what else would follow suit? Jeffrey?
they would get taken over and turn communist.
All right, communism. Yep, good job. So communism would spread to these areas in Eastern Europe that were given to the Soviet Union. Okay, and then eventually, like obviously in Asia, where this could maybe become a domino effect and spread even more. And Truman, obviously, he was a little hesitant about making a deal, making negotiations with Stalin because of this idea, because of communism spreading even more throughout the world. Can we have any type of trade or partnership with communist nations? No. No. Democracy, people having the choice of who they would represent them as a government body, not even prevalent at all in communism. So it totally goes against what the United States is set up and established to be. All right, and that's going to be a problem for Truman and the United States moving forward after World War II. It's already like they can see the future of what's going to happen. And the Cold War follows suit technically before World War II is even over. Right, but this is going to be a struggle all the way up until the 1990s between the Soviet Union and the United States of who's more dominant, who can spread their influence all around the world. All right, so what did Truman want to negotiate with Stalin? Jeffrey?
We wanted to negotiate the terms for war in the Pacific.
Yeah, good job. Stalin said, "Hey, we finished up in Europe. We finished with Germany, and we'll help and assist you now with Japan." Obviously, Stalin had a little bit more in mind. As far as he pushed the Japanese back in Asia, he'll be able to claim those lands for a communist regime, almost as like satellite nations to the Soviet Union. So he's all for it. He's gung-ho, even though he lost millions and millions of people, citizens, civilians, soldiers, all throughout this war in Europe against Hitler and the Nazis. So he's looking at influence, how he can spread the Soviet influence, communist influence throughout the world. Okay, in 1949, China would have their own civil war and become communist. And that will create more issues for the United States in the Asian theater after World War II. All right, good. And Stalin, like I said, he wanted to make sure he could claim these lands in Eastern Europe and have the ability to protect himself from another rising European nation country. And then we'll see some of these alliances forming after World War II, like NATO, like the Warsaw Pact eventually, and its competition between the two powers. But in July of 1945, what happened where the United States seemed like they had the upper hand in these negotiations? What occurred? It was a success of a project. What was it, Troy?
Nuclear bombs.
Yeah, okay, good, good. So Trinity test, right? So it showed that the United States had this super weapon, this nuclear weapon. And Truman, did he spill the beans to Stalin and Churchill about this super weapon at this conference? Troy? Yeah, he did. He said, hey, we have a super weapon. We have an atomic weapon. And he thought that this would be a great method to use against Stalin with these negotiations. Like, hey, we see your intentions here. Okay, we're not too happy or thrilled with your influence you're trying to spread into Eastern Europe and into parts of Asia. We have a nuclear weapon. Okay, so these negotiations should be coming into play in our favor a little bit more. So in a way, Truman was kind of trying to strong arm him with letting him know about this nuclear weapon. Did Stalin believe it? No, he didn't. He didn't. He's like, no, you don't. You can talk a big game, but there's no way you have this super weapon. And today we'll talk about the use of these atomic weapons to finish the war in the Pacific against Japan. So yeah, things were definitely heating up between the Soviet Union and the Allied nations, Great Britain and the United States, after World War II, even before the war was even over. And many people believe that Truman utilized this atomic weapon to end the war in Europe, or sorry, in Pacific against Japan because, well, number one, save American lives, but number two, try to show the Soviet Union who's boss, right? Who's superior, and to try to stop this spread of communism from getting on the mainland of Japan. Because if that would have happened, who knows? You know, like the Korean War, it could have been a Japanese war, right, over communist beliefs and democracy. So today, who's one of our biggest allies? Who has the third largest economy in the world? Griffin, you know? Japan. Good job. Good job. Good. All right, is there any questions on the Potsdam Conference? No? All right. So just two terms for today. Hiroshima and Nagasaki VJ Day. There you go. Troy, how was your weekend, man?
Good.
What all did you do?
What trap shooting?
Trap shooting.
Yeah.
Nice. Did you go to like a course, or was it just like a I don't know, just shooting it out from the box, pretty much?
We got a course.
Oh, do you? Yeah. Where do you guys go for that?
Put on the military.
Okay. Okay. Nice. I was only ever at Valley Views. Were you ever at Valley Views? Oh, that's pretty nice. Well, how'd you score?
I shot a 24 and 23.
Wow. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. That's really good. Do they throw the rabbits, the ones that roll across the ground?
No.
Oh, that's pretty cool, isn't it? Do you ever see them anyway?
Yeah, I've seen.
They're tough. Tough. Something about shooting a blue rock. Perfect, you know, just seeing it explode. It's almost like hitting a good shot or drive in golf. It's awesome. Yeah, what's up, buddy? Yeah, go ahead. All right, what do we have? Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Forney.
There are two Japanese cities that were destroyed.
All right, good job. So these are the two cities that will be destroyed by the atomic weapons. Okay, the United States would target these two cities to try to finish off the war in the Pacific. Good. And we had more ready to go to try to force the Japanese into surrender. We know it's against their code, it's against their culture, their will to give up or to surrender. But when you throw in a super weapon, an atomic weapon that destroys cities with one bomb, then sooner or later they're gonna surrender here. They're gonna give up. All right, good. VJ Day. Griffin, what do you have? All right, good job. And what was the date for that? Do you know? Good job. So August 15th, 1945, and that will be it. That will be where the Japanese surrendered to the United States on the USS Missouri. And there's a couple pictures. I'll show you one then. I'll show you the picture towards the end of this lesson. It kind of shows the ending of the war, and it's like a big party again. Okay, same thing at the end of Europe. Okay, that famous picture of a couple making out. Oh, gross! I don't see that, but they're all happy, jumping up and down. The baby boomers following suit, right? Oh, look out! Look out! All right, so dropping a bomb. So on August 6th, 1945, after the Potsdam Conference in July, and moving into early August, Truman decided, which was probably one of the biggest decisions ever to make, whether or not to utilize the atomic weapon. Okay. Quick story. My grandfather, he was talking about it when I was really young. He was ready to go to launch an Operation Downfall, this invasion of the Japanese home island. And he even talked like, you know what? I probably wouldn't have lived. Okay, the odds are definitely stacked up against the United States soldiers that would invade the mainland of Japan. Okay, because we know the citizens, the civilians would have joined into the fight. It would have been a total war. It would have been something that would have been very difficult for the U.S. to accomplish. And there would have been casualties and deaths mounting into 3 to 4 million range. That's what many of these statisticians were talking about with this invasion, if it would have happened. Okay, luckily for the United States and the American soldiers, we didn't have to invade. We decided to use these super weapons, these nuclear weapons, to try to finish the war in the Pacific theater. So on August 6th, 1945, the Enola Gay, which is the plane that dropped the first atomic bomb on Japan, okay, this was crucial, right? Devastating. 60,000 dead. 60,000 dead. Like I mentioned with Okinawa and Iwo Jima, this allowed us to get closer and closer to the mainland of Japan, where we could target many of these key cities at ease with no problem. Okay, and with Hiroshima, that was the first city to be destroyed. Okay, I'll show you pictures here soon of what that looked like, and actually perspectives from some Japanese citizens who witnessed the atomic bomb. I have a video for you how she describes it. It's pretty shocking, breathtaking. And August 9th, 1945, the Japanese refused to surrender. They didn't want to give up. Okay, like I said, it's against their code, even after utilizing this atomic weapon, this super weapon, onto the Japanese citizens, civilians. They didn't want to surrender. And in August 9th, 1945, Nagasaki was targeted at 35,000 dead. Okay, it was actually aimed for a different city, but because of the conditions, the cloud coverage, they decided to drop it on a larger opening valley of Nagasaki. Okay, which was kind of where it was a smaller city. It wasn't as near as large, but they decided to drop it on Nagasaki because of this cloud coverage. So then eventually Japan surrenders on September 2nd, 1945. Okay, and really just signifying the end of the war, World War II, finally, since 1939. And Japan, we know, where it was imperialistic ever since the ending of World War I. How they're expanding past their borders, claiming territory and land and islands all throughout the Pacific, and moving into Asia. And finally, these aggressive powers were defeated. So some say with this atomic weapon that was used. Many individuals describe the effects of it. Okay, here's some pictures of the radiation destruction it really caused in these two cities. Today, there's memorials there just showing the ground zero where the atomic bomb was, detonated, where it was set off. And some say it was so hot, the intense heat, the intense radiation, it literally melted the skin off of people's bodies that obviously weren't killed by the explosion itself. It rapidly heated the rivers, the bodies of water that surrounded the cities to a point where it was so boiling hot that people that tried to cool off from the blast itself jumped in the river and creeks, whatever, the lakes around it. And because the bomb released so much heat, it was like it was boiling water. And some of these people that went to the rivers or the bodies of water to cool off, literally as they were walking out, they just saw their skin kind of boiling to a point where they died instantly because of the intense heat of the water. Shadows of some of these people, because of the blast, the intense heat, the bright flash of it, were pasted on the sidewalks and the rubble, the destruction of some of these buildings. It was, for many people, a sight that they'll never forget, obviously. Yeah, we all know the radiation caused a little bit more death even than the explosions itself. And we try to warn many of the people of Japan that we're going to drop this atomic weapon. And most of them didn't believe it. Most of them didn't think that this could even happen, that we had the ability to create a nuclear weapon like this. And within Japan, shocking enough, the emperor made the final decision. We know Hideki Tojo, he was kind of leading the charge with all this militaristic gain ever since really the 30s and even the late 20s. And they left it up to the emperor. It's like, hey, should we keep fighting? Should we surrender? And after the second bomb in Nagasaki, Hirohito decided we should end this war. Okay, and many people all throughout Japan were in a tizzy about it. They were upset with his decision. They didn't want to surrender. They didn't want to give up. Like I said, it's a part of their culture. And the emperor himself saying he wants to surrender, this led many coups to form against him, to try to overthrow his leadership, to try to assassinate him, and to take his leadership away from him because of how strong-willed their culture really is about surrender and not giving up. And it was a shock to many of these individuals. Half of them, like I said, wanted to give up. Half of them didn't, and they wanted to overthrow his power. And there's many attempts against his life in Japan because of this decision to surrender in World War II. They thought they could maybe last it out. And Hirohito knew that the United States would continue to drop these nuclear weapons until the war was closed, because that's the word that was given to him. And he couldn't imagine every city in Japan being destroyed by these nuclear weapons. Tokyo was firebombed to really hell and back again. I don't know how much more destruction could have been caused there. Many people say the fire bombings onto Tokyo caused more deaths and casualties than the atomic bombs themselves. So Tokyo was already really laid to waste. There was nothing left of it. And now a lot of these major cities, these industrial cities, are being destroyed by these atomic weapons. And we had 2 more of them lined up, ready to target other cities in Japan if they wouldn't surrender. But finally, like I said, September of 1945, the Japanese surrendered. We know VJ Day being on August 15th, 1945. And this was the ending of the war in Europe. Ending the war in Europe. So tomorrow I'll talk about the Holocaust, the Nuremberg trials, right, and how that is going to be really ending World War II. Like I mentioned, with the Potsdam Conference, conflict and issues will still rise after this war. You'd think it would all end with this world conflict, but things would just be more, I guess, say, anticipated and intense afterwards because of the nuclear weapons, because of nuclear bombs, and this new wave of warfare. All right, is there any questions on that, guys? All right, I'll just play a short video, and that'll be it for today.